Before we officially kick off, I would like to start our webinar with an acknowledgement of country. We respectfully acknowledge and pay our respects to the Turrbal people located in Meanjin and Brisbane, their elders, laws, customs and creation spirits. We acknowledge that these lands have always been places of learning, sharing and community support, which is what brings our community together today. So for those who are not familiar with me, I am Angela Shelton, the CEO of Answers for Associations. We are an online community hub dedicated to connecting anybody and everybody working in the association space. So welcome. Now, today I am very excited to welcome Belinda Moore. She is very much well known in association circles. Belinda's dedication to the industry spans various roles such as a specialist, researcher, author, speaker, consultant, and facilitator. And with over 25 years of her rich experience, her engaging teaching style has made a hugely significant impact on many of you. From her acclaimed works like The Membership Machine to our annual Associations Evolve journal and the delightfully curious tales of Association Annie, I'm sure you've seen her name pop up a few times in your inbox. And today she's going to be taking you through the 14 pivotal conversations driving association planning right now. So get ready for a deep dive and officially welcome Belinda.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back again, and looking at the list of attendees, it's great to see so many familiar names in there. And so today, what we're going to do is it's going to be pretty quick moving because there's lots to cover, but I want to make sure that you have a really good overview because there's so much happening in associations at the moment. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been working in associations since 1993. I've written, as Angela said, lots of different books. I edited the Associations Evolve journal. I've facilitated many, many strategic planning processes, membership model reviews, and you can see one of the Association Annie cartoons there. Now, today, what I'm going to do, it is a lot of presentation through here, but if you've got a question, please ask it. You can pop it into the Q&A function there, and I'll get to that question, because if you've got the question, don't be shy. Others have probably got the same thing. But without any further ado, let us jump into it. First of all, I want to talk about what the idea of an association is, because associations are essentially a collective of people coming together collectively to advance a common purpose. They've existed for as long as humans have existed, because that's the natural driver for us to be able to survive, is to be able to act collectively, to be able to find food, water, shelter, professional advancement, whatever it might be. Now, those of us who are over the age of 50 have been around for a while. We're very used to and comfortable with these structures that we have, these formalized structures, like as a limited company. But that's just one structure of an association. And when we're looking at associations, we should think about them from the perspective of they're a mechanism that enables people to act collectively. The mechanisms that we know now are only those within our human memories, which are short. Those mechanisms are going to change. Now, whether or not the mechanisms that we have right now, the associations that we know and love, exist into the future is up to us, and how effectively we can evolve as the operating landscape shifts around us. So today I want to go through what that is happening there, what associations are doing. You'll see there's a lot of text on the slides. That's because I'm going to send them to you afterwards. I'm not going to be talking to all of that text. And I will endeavour, though, to get those main points across to you. But I wanted to share with you one of my favourite quotes from Mark Golden. It's quite an old paper, but I loved it when I saw, he said, "None of our organisation founders ever got together in a room and said, what we need to do is collect a bunch of money so we can hire a staff to sell us stuff." That's not what associations are about. They're about what is the collective purpose. And do you know what? There's associations for everyone. If you look here, there are, the Dull Men's Club, which is actually hilarious. You should check out their Facebook page because they truly excel at dull. Even the International Order of Hoo-Hoo. There is an association for everyone, and every association is a little bit different. So what I'd like you to do as we go through today is to listen to all of the things that are happening and think, how is that going to change what we need to do? What are the practical things that we need to be doing now to be able to address these different topics? So let's just jump into the first one. Purpose. Associations do not exist to recruit and retain members. Membership is just one of many, many tools that you have at your disposal to achieve your purpose. And financial membership growth isn't an end of itself. There's got to be a reason. And the reason is your purpose. Your purpose is what is the outcome that collective of people is trying to achieve. And if you need a way to think about it, what would people miss if you didn't exist? Or if you were being creative for the first time today, what would be the biggest thing you'd focus on doing? Articulating your purpose is absolutely critical, because then it acts as the lens through which everything else that you do should align. And that should be where you're asking the questions, not, what do we offer members? Before you even ask that question, it should be, why do we have a financial membership structure? Who should be a member to help us to advance our purpose? So you can see that having real clarity around that is important. But note as well, purposes can evolve. And one of the biggest things that's impacting how associations are advancing their purposes at the moment is the fact that we're entering a period of really, really rapid AI acceleration. We've already been in rapid technological change. I mean, I still remember back in my day, as my kids hate me saying, when I was excited about the fact we had a new fax machine come in, a new franking machine, we still had, the membership was still written on those cards. And then it was all fancy that we had a membership database. But nowadays, we're beyond that. So those kind of things, having a database is expected. It's about digital transformation and how are we harnessing our data and everything else around us to be able to evolve forward. But associations are now going beyond that, beyond just saying, how can we use marketing automation to streamline our new member onboarding process, to say, how can we implement things like AI to not only enhance our internal productivity, but also to enhance the member experience? And also, how do we help our members navigate through? And why is this important? Because I know for some people who haven't really got into it yet, you're like, well, isn't that over the hills and far away, a long way off? No. It's really not. If you look at history, it took 75 years before there was 100 million monthly users of the telephone. Even for the internet, it took 7 years. Facebook, 4.5 years before there was 100 million monthly users. For ChatGPT, it was 2 months. One of the biggest things that is going to impact the association operating landscape in the next 5 years is the advent of AI. And when it comes, it's going to feel like it's happening all at once, but it's already happening now. There's a lot of associations who are embracing this. And what is this? And I'm going to go through this quite quickly. But essentially, associations internally are looking at AI from 3 different perspectives. One, for our individual staff members, how do we demystify it and get them applying AI tools just in their daily roles to enhance their productivity? Getting ChatGPT to write a LinkedIn post, or getting a large piece of research and uploading it into ChatGPT and getting it to convert it into a couple of articles that are a little bit more approachable than a giant research piece. There's so many ways that these tools can immediately enhance your day-to-day productivity without having to collude with all the staff members just on an individual basis. The next level they're looking at is operationally. So as a functional department, say for our events, how can we use AI and other digital tools to be able to enhance outcomes for our delegates, to be able to maximize the profitability? What can we do? And it might take more thinking about it, but what can we do as a department or a functional area to be able to improve our outcomes? And then the last one is strategically, actually having a look at how we need to approach AI. What's our governance like with our ethics, the way that we use AI? And even more importantly, well, equally importantly, how are we going to help move our sectors through? Because if you look at AI, it's going to have a very different impact on professions and industries. So if you're let's look at radiologists. AI can read an X-ray around 400% more effectively than a radiologist. So what does this mean? The radiology machine manufacturers are, of course, embedding tools where AI can read the X-rays as they're coming through. What is the impact on this? Well, if you're a hospital, you're like, cool. Well, maybe instead of having 12 radiologists, we'll have 3. They can just double check what's coming out. So from a hospital's perspective, from a health sector perspective, the productivity enhancements and the improved patient outcomes are a huge bonus. But what about the profession? And this is where we have this dichotomy sitting in with the AI. in the radiology profession right now, I'd be going, oh, okay, that's a little bit worrying. What are we going to do to navigate our profession forward? What does it look like from here? So this is a lot of the big topic of conversation for associations at the moment, is understanding what does the future look like for those that we serve, and how do we help them to navigate forward? And this is going to become an increasingly big topic, and there's a lot of associations who are already doing some wonderful work in this respect. But it's not just about the AI either. Look beyond that. I know that's the fad, the catch cry at the moment, but cyber threats are increasing. What are we doing about our data security? How are we enhancing our user experience by using more intuitive technology platforms? What's our CRM system looking like? Is it plugged into everything else? How are we using data to inform our decision making? So there's a lot of things that you should be looking at in this respect, and looking forward, associations who are going to be successful in the future are not using technology to replace member interactions, because associations are about people connecting with people. They're using technology to enable a better collective action. They're enabling better access or better achievement of the purpose. And one of the things that I really like technology for is also how it can enhance even simple things. So if you look at a member recruitment and retention process, there's generally 7, broadly speaking, steps to recruiting and retaining a member. There's the lead generation. So where do you get your leads from? That's how do you generate them? How do you actually qualify them to know if they're really a lead? Then how do you capture them into your database? And then how do you tag them so you can follow them up? And then you've got prospect relationship management. So how do we build a relationship with prospective members so they get to know who we are and they actually become familiar with this, so that when we do want to talk to them about membership, they're actually going to be receptive. And this could be something as, traditionally it's a free email bulletin once a month, but there's a lot more involved with it into that. The next step is a sales process. So how do I convert someone from a non-member into a member? Do I do outbound phone calls? Is it direct mail campaigns? Because, some of them still work. Is it a mix of those things? Do we have trial memberships? There's lots of different ways you can do that. Next step is new member integration, your onboarding, because the greatest drop-off of members is generally from first-year members and then second year, because they're not yet as engaged in the collective nature of the association. So you need to have really strong onboarding so that you can enhance your first-year retention rate, which incidentally you should be tracking. Then you've got your member relationship management. So how do you ensure at all times that members believe they're better off as a member than a non-member? How do you enhance that sense of being a part of something, belonging to something? Because before you know it, you get to this next step, which is renewals, essentially a referendum on member satisfaction. And how do you maximize the number of people who choose to renew? And for those who don't, how do you reactivate them? Because when I'm looking at generating new members, going to somebody who's been a past member is a far, far easier task than going to someone who's never been a member, because someone who's never been a member needs to understand who you are and what you do, but a past member just needs to know what's different. So if you look at even this simple member recruitment and retention process, there are many, many points there where using technology can really streamline and improve your outcomes. And if you can improve your outcomes just marginally around that whole 7-step process, then suddenly you're able to achieve quite substantive membership growth. So this is why this is a huge topic of conversation for a lot of associations at the moment. The next one is one that's been around with us for a while, but I've been in associations for 30 years, and younger members has been a topic of conversation that whole time. And I know the research shows that people tend to generate towards their professional bodies around the age of 30 and upwards. But there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind when it comes to understanding how we can better navigate these generational shifts. Now, I noticed that there's quite a few of you here who've seen me speak before, so you'll have heard this story. But the baby boomers built the associations that we have today. Now, imagine you're building a house. You might want 26 kitchens and 17 bathrooms in a single bedroom. That's okay. It's your house. But then you try and sell that house, and that's what was happening right now in associations. When the baby boomers, the silent generation, the older generation X, built the associations that we have right now, they built the products, the services, the events, the decision-making channels, governance structures, everything entirely to their taste. Now, if your membership is entirely made up by their demographic, great, good on you. I'm sure they are all going to be happy, but that's not the case for the vast majority of associations. And this is the problem that we have right now. The older generation are very conditioned to these traditional models. This idea that you pay a membership fee, you get stuff, you don't pay a membership fee, stuff you don't want to, we don't want you here. These really old-fashioned ideas. But the younger generation didn't grow up with this at all. They grew up with completely different membership models. Spotify, Uber, LinkedIn, dial up when you need it, dial out when you don't. Very much about access when on demand. So the models that they're comfortable and familiar with, and not necessarily the models that a lot of associations have, although a lot are changing and trying to change. But it does mean that for many, when a younger person comes to the association, it feels a little bit old-fashioned, conservative, fuddy-duddy, doesn't necessarily fit correctly. So this is something that a lot of associations are trying to understand. How do we keep our older members on the bus while engaging with our younger members? And you know what? This is a really critical thing to get right. We ran a really interesting workshop with a board and some staff of an association at the end of last year, which is essentially why your younger members hate you. And what we did is we got a few younger members who came in and they talked about their experience with the association and what they go through in their daily life. And it was a real eye-opener for a lot of people because these, final year students were saying, well, I don't go to lectures. I watch the recording on 1.5 or 2 times speed because who's got time to put an hour into a lecture? They're like, don't email me. I don't read emails. If you want to talk to me, do it in a TikTok. If you can't do it in 12, 15 seconds, then, work harder. These generations communicate. The younger generation communicates very, very differently from how the older generation does. And if we can't do what we've always done to engage these groups, associations are having to start thinking, how can we reinvent what we're doing? And it doesn't mean changing everything. Often it's about how you communicate it. So if you've got a complex piece of research, right now, going back to technology, you could drop that into ChatGPT and you could say, right, convert this research into a blog article, an article. Using ChatGPT, you can convert that research into a 20-second TikTok. These tools already exist, and you can use them to change how you're communicating to make it appealing to all of the different generations that you're engaging with, and not just appealing, but accessible. I'm going to go through quite fast on this. All right, so one of the 4th out of the 14 conversations that associations are having is how can we better manage increasing competition? Because this is just going to get even more so. So back when I first started out in associations, the main competitors that you had were other associations that may sort of cross onto your turf, but generally there were gentlemen's agreements in place, which meant that it didn't happen too often, although occasionally you did see clashes, and look, they were very entertaining to watch. But what's happened since then is this. Both for-profit and informal groups are also coming into this space to compete. So, for example, if I'm the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, a fairly significant competitor is a Facebook group called Doctors Down Under, because if I'm joining my association to be able to connect with other professionals, well, why do I have to pay all that money when I can get it for free from the Facebook group? And this is what we're seeing. It rarely is it a full frontal attack. These competitors who are coming in are competing with 1 or 2 things the association does, the products, services, publications, advocacy, whatever it happens to be, the events. And it's this death by 1,000 cuts, whereas this huge value proposition that might have existed in the 90s and even in the early 2000s is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking as all of these competitors just nibble and nibble and nibble until one day you wake up, you look around and go, holy crap, what's left? And this is where associations have to be really strategic on how they come into here. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to provide all of the products and services. Where associations who are doing exceptionally well are succeeding is where they can see what is the difference that they can make. Where can they make the biggest impact against their purpose? See, that comes through again. And focusing their resources on that. So rather than having this very thinly layered spread of resources, they're focusing to that impact because it's in recognition of the fact that most people don't join you for 26 different reasons. Most people join you for 1 or 2 really important reasons, and then there's a few nice to haves. So by understanding what is that impact that you want to create against your purpose, how are you going to do that? You can then lean in to become more competitively agile. And bear in mind, some people who are currently competitors are actually probably great potential collaborators. And we're seeing a lot of that. There's a lot more collaborations going on. And from that, there's also a lot more mergers and acquisitions going on in the association sector as people are seeking to leverage technology to make themselves more scalable, but in the process, bring in other associations. So looking around and figuring out, do we really need to compete with somebody, or could they be a collaborator, is a good pathway forward. Value. So the next conversation, and we get this one, oh, we need a value proposition. First of all, can I just jump on that soapbox and say there is no one-size-fits-all value proposition that is relevant to every member? Associations aren't homogenous groups of people or organizations. There's lots of different ways to slice and dice value. And value isn't what you do necessarily. So for example, if I ask someone what you do and you say we've got a magazine, we've got an email bulletin, and we run events, I don't give a crap. Every association does that. Those things inherently have no value whatsoever. They're simply features that might provide a benefit that can deliver value. If I'm joining an industry association, and the value proposition is it's an investment in the success of my business. Somehow you're going to help me to increase my income, decrease my costs, gain a competitive advantage over those people who aren't members. Value is about the outcome that somebody's going to generate. And when you understand the outcomes that people want to generate from you, you can craft a very focused value proposition to deliver that outcome. But bear in mind that it might shift. So for example, you've got individual and you've got organizational members. With an organization, you've got the leaders, managers, and doers, which is at the different level. The value proposition that they would need from an organizational membership is quite different. It's very unlikely that you're going to get a one-size-fits-all in any organization that's got over 5 or 6 staff, and probably even under. So if I'm in a strategic level, I need to understand what are the insights I need to know to impact how I'm planning the strategy for this business. Whereas at a tactical doer level, I need to know, how do I do the job better? So when we're looking at value proposition, particularly with organizational memberships, you have to think about within the organization, how do I tailor it to the different individuals in there and what their role is? But across your membership more broadly, whether you're individual or organizational memberships, it's about understanding what are the major market segments, and if you're really clever, you'll structure your membership categories around them, that we're serving where they have that commonality of need. So for example, I wouldn't lump into one membership category, one organizational category, the core members we serve who are organizations and our sponsors, because the value proposition is quite different. If you've got somebody who's a vendor supplying products and services into your industry, and then you've got the businesses in that industry, the vendor's value proposition is about how do we increase our product sales or profitability. And for the organization in the industry, it might be about how do we proactively influence the legislative and policy environment that we're working in. So there's quite a lot of different variables. And the other thing to keep in mind is buildings don't join associations, people do. So you do need to craft a value proposition for an organization, but whether it's an individual or an organizational membership you've got, you also need to think about what does the individual need and what is the journey that they're on. Because the needs of somebody at the start of their career, but how do I get that critical first step? How do I expand my networks and connectivity so that I can advance further faster, are quite different from somebody who's towards the end of their career where they've already got those things in place and they're more probably thinking about succession planning and building a legacy. One of the things that you can do to help you to craft this value proposition is this. We do a lot of surveys. Very specifically, it's all around membership stuff. But when you send out a membership survey, I like to do first to ask questions about the individuals and then the organizations that they work with. And then I ask these questions. How important is it that our association delivers on, and then see that list of benefits, government advocacy, online professional development. So you'll have whatever your benefits are here. Be very careful, not features, benefits. So I wouldn't say our awards program, I'd say recognizing member excellence or recognizing excellence in the industry or sector, because an awards program is just one way you could deliver that benefit. So there's a difference benefit feature. But the reason I ask this question is I want to understand how important it is that we do something. The next question I ask is how effective is the association when it delivers on the same list of benefits? And what I'm understanding then is how well do the members think that we're actually doing it? And now I know it sounds nuanced, but this is really, really handy question to be asking people for this reason. You can see this table here. So if you look at this table, and this is of course some dummy data, but you can see here small businesses really value the government advocacy, as does all the other businesses. But the small businesses also value really practical things like the career support, the industry excellence recognition. And then the larger the business, the less emphasis they have on this. So when you ask this question and you get these ratings, and incidentally, the way you get the ratings is you add very important and important, or very effective and effective together. That will give you your effectiveness and your importance rankings or ratings, which is what you can see in here. But what this does is it helps you to understand what's the value proposition by different market segments. So this table, if you've asked the right qualifying questions about the individual and the organization, you could have a long table, which is not just members, non-members. You could have it by age group, you could have it by region, you could have it by industry. And what you're looking for is where are the outliers? Like on this table here, you can see very quickly that members have a better opinion of the effectiveness of the association than non-members. For example, on online professional development, members think the association is 71% effective, whereas non-members think it's 43% effective, which tells me that if the non-members don't actually understand the quality of what we're providing, so potentially one of the issues with their sales is them needing to experience it so they can have an enhanced opinion of how effective it is. So you can see there's a lot in there, but getting this kind of data when you're crafting a value proposition is really important, because if you're going to be focused on the way that you're delivering, you need to be able to have the data to say this is where we need to focus so you can do it with confidence. And one of the things that comes through often is this next conversation. How can we foster thriving online and face-to-face communities? One of the key competitive advantages that associations have is that strong and engaged community. And that this is something that other people will find it really, really hard to compete against, because if somebody has a genuine relationship with you, they're more likely to be sticky. So for associations, it means that a lot of what we do is taking people from that transactional decision to join, suck it, see, give it a go, to that emotional decision to belong to something that's bigger than them. And do you know what? You can gauge how effective you are at that by looking at your first year retention rate. Because the better your first year retention rate is, the better you are at actually onboarding people. And building that sense of community is really important, because there is a big difference between a community and a clique. So, you know, you may think, and I've seen it happen time and time again, where associations think they've got wonderful communities, but they've got really firm cliques and there's no pathways in. Community doesn't just happen, and communities aren't homogenous. Your association is not one homogenous community. You've got lots and lots of different tribes, whether it's women, younger people, special interest groups, communities of practice, regional branches, whatever it happens to be. You've got lots and lots of different tribes. And the field of component relations actually says, well, what tribes do we want? How do the tribes help us advance our purpose? And then how can we structure our volunteering pathways and our tribes to be able to be successful in advancing our purpose? And that actually takes some thought. A lot of associations are now investing the time and resources in building very structured, data-driven pathways, using technology to enable those pathways so that they can strengthen the connectivity between members. And one of the things that's an important consideration that is this relationship continuum. You've got all of these people in your communities. You've got never heard of you people who might be in your sector, up to passionate members. And how you deal with these groups is quite different. I mean, one of my biggest membership successes was one of my biggest membership failures in the early 90s. I had a lady, she used to refer me in a new member about once a month. But do you know what? She was a florist. I could never get her to join. I even offered her a free membership and she's like, no, that's okay. If I've got any questions, I'll ask you. She was a lovely old lady, amazing at referring, but she was what I would call a passionate endeavour member. And so my relationship with her, because she was there, it was already sold, it was very different from somebody who'd never even heard of us. And being able to moderate your communications, to be able to be respectful of where you are in that relationship continuum with people and how you want to draw them in, is a really important success factor when it comes to these things. I'm going through because looking at time, I know there's a bit to get yet. Communication, and this is building on from that. Good communication isn't telling people stuff, and it's certainly not sending an email. Certainly nowadays, when email came in, we all jumped on that bandwagon. The wheels have fallen off, and we need to look at better ways. But essentially, good communication is this: understanding what is the outcome we want to generate from that communication. Do we want people to register for our event? Do we want people to click through? Do we want them to respond to a survey? And then thinking about, who do we need to send it to? Because you don't want to send everything to everyone, because if people get stuff that's irrelevant, they're not going to open the next thing. So who are we sending it to them? What channel? Could we do it in a TikTok? Could we do it in a video? It does need to be a text message. And if it is an email, because it's short, long video, what is it going to be? What's the incentive? How are we going to, what do we need to do to inspire that action? Really crafting our communications so that every single time somebody gets a communication from you, they rush to open it because they know it's going to be relevant and engaging. And I know that this is an aspiration that a lot of people feel that they don't live up to at the moment, but that's okay. You've just got to keep trying and keeping in mind that segmenting your communications is critical, but it doesn't need to be overly onerous, particularly not if you've got your data segmented appropriately, so that you can actually go through when you're sending something and just say, who do I not need to send it to? Or if you've got a communication that goes out and maybe going, right, well, this communication, this is going to go to the committees in this way, but to our younger member group, maybe we are going to convert it into this or send it in a different medium. What we're seeing it right now, which I really love, is associations are starting to play, because they understand that often it's not about your products and services that makes people want to join, renew, or get involved. It's about how you communicate, because how you communicate dictates how you make people feel. And if you have really transactional, formal communications with people who've been a member for 30 years and they feel that they have a close relationship with you, but you're pushing them away, there's going to be a dissonance there, which can cause friction. And so this attention to communication is absolutely critical. So number 8, the other big conversation, and this is huge, and workforce is huge for so many sectors right now, but in associations, it's a really interesting one, because people want to understand, how can we nurture a productive and purposeful team culture? And we're in an environment where there's roles coming up in associations that simply didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. Things like online community manager, AI lead. There's all of these new roles coming out, and getting somebody with 10 years experience in AI is impossible. How we're changing at the moment is associations are trying to get the right people, and appreciating that if they want to keep those people, they've got to create an environment which people want to be part of, where people are passionate about what you're doing there. But 2, they're continually having to upskill and invest in their people, getting the training to maintain their skills, because we're working in a really rapidly changing world. And that does mean tailoring it, because I do lots of focus groups and lots of staff consultation. And do you know, it's really sad how often I'll be talking with staff members and you'll hear them say, oh, do you know, I don't really know how to use even Outlook that well. I don't know how to use Teams or SharePoint, but we never got any training and I'm embarrassed to ask. That's so awful, because immediately that impact on the culture can be potentially enormous. And the associations who are really abreast of this are assessing staff skills and providing them with individualized learning pathways to make sure that they're getting the training that's relevant to them at their point of learning, to ensure that they can actually maintain not just their productivity, but their own skills. So this is something which is really important to pay attention to, because at the moment, finding good association staff is really hard. Everybody's screaming out for qualified, passionate people who can get the job done, and the wages have really started scaling up. So for associations, becoming an employer of choice is absolutely critical to future success, because associations are about people connecting to other people in a sector to advance a cause. The glue in that is your staff team, those people who are actually helping make it all happen. And this is another conversation that we see coming through again and again. So generating strong and sustainable revenue streams. First of all, you've got to have something to sell that people want to buy. It's absolutely the most fundamental thing. And you can do that. We find that there's so many opportunities where associations are leaving money on the table because they're not monetizing opportunities. So that is finding what it is that you've got that people will want, and across the different markets that you serve. So the next thing is you've got to be prepared to sell it, because it's not, associations aren't hard sell. Associations have a purpose, a really worthwhile purpose. And when you're creating products and services for your members, you're not doing it because you want to make money. And you do have to do it sustainably, naturally, but you're doing it because you want to help them. So whether it's a membership or an event or whatever it is you have, sales is not dirty. Sales is just good customer service. And the number of associations who are struggling just because internally they're uncomfortable with the idea of sales is absolutely appalling. Because when you get out there, if you genuinely believe that someone's better off as a member or non-member, or if you can genuinely believe that these events are going to help make a positive impact on someone's career or their cause or their business, then you should be proudly going out there to sell. But often when we see associations who are having challenges here, they either have a very limited sales process, or they're not utilizing all of the different sales pathways that they could be using. So for example, you should have marketing automation in place. Think about having an AI chatbot that's on your website. So when somebody comes to your website at any time, day or night, they can ask questions about the membership. That if somebody sends an email, adds themselves to the email list, it sets up prompts that potentially even puts them into a trial membership if relevant. There should be an internal transactional salesperson whose job's just to pick up the phone and follow up membership and events, generally your low value stuff. You can even outsource to someone like Optimum Contact, which is an outbound call center that just does associations. So there's no excuse for not doing it. You can have an in-house high value person whose job's to go after the bigger sales, like your 25, 50, 100, $1 million partnerships, where you're not investing, say, for example, with transactional, you'll be investing, you might do some direct mail and things like that. For these bigger things, you're investing in, a couple of lunches because it's a different sales process. You should be looking at a data analyst who will look through and identify, where are you leaving money on the table? Where could you be leveraging additional revenue? And this is actually a really interesting thing. So many people have this catchphrase about revenue diversification. Do you know what? Before you even get to that, look at your existing revenue sources and make sure you're optimizing them first, and then move into diversification. I have a lot of things on this particular soapbox because there's a lot of ways that associations could immediately and powerfully increase their revenue just with what they're doing, with very little in the way of additional resource being required. So don't be afraid of sales and look to embrace all of the different opportunities to get out there, because the number of times, do you know the number one reason that people don't join an association when they know about it? Like time after time, this comes up number one in the surveys. Nobody asked me. People don't just spontaneously decide to join something or do something. There's got to be a prompt, and that prompt is your sales process. Alrighty, I'm going to race through the last couple here. Last one, number 10, using data to inform decision making. This is really important because unfortunately, when I started out in associations, the way that a lot of decisions were made was essentially someone would bend over and pull it out their bottom. It doesn't need to be that anymore. We've got such wonderful resources of data, not just internally, but externally, and really getting the association in the habit of using evidence to inform decision making. If you've got the technology, getting it so that you've got dashboards at a tactical, operational, and strategic level, so the board or any staff member can go in and see how everything connects. If you've got a strategic plan, what are the KPIs? How does that cascade from strategic KPIs to operational KPIs to tactical KPIs? And how can anybody get a line of sight the whole way through? Absolutely critical. Champion. So then this is a really interesting one. The rise of ESG, the environmental social governance trends in the last 5 years is really starting to impact associations. And it's really interesting to see how they're applying it. One of the things that I'd caution against is taking positions on things that you can't impact. Like your association may want a strong position on the war in Ukraine, but you're not going to be able to make any tangible impact on that. If you're going to go out there and champion a cause, pick causes that are very much aligned to those you serve, where you can make a tangible impact. Because definitely, particularly when looking at the younger generation, if you can link what you're doing, your purpose, to something that also advances something in the environmental sustainability, social responsibility area that's aligned and helps out those you serve, it's certainly worthwhile. And I think we're going to see this coming up more and more, because we're just seeing that groundswell start. Okay. How can we better evolve the more contemporary membership model? Okay. The membership models that we have existed for hundreds of years, and they are really no longer appropriate for most associations. Some, but certainly not most. We need to actually rethink how we look at membership, because the operating landscape around us has changed so fundamentally that these old structures are not necessarily relevant anymore. And just on the top level, you've got things like, are we a traditional membership model? Think Masons, where someone joins, they get stuff, and then they're no longer a member, they're gone. Where the focus that you do with a membership model is you start off by saying, join us, and then you get stuff. Now, at the other end of this particular spectrum, and there's lots of spectrums when it comes to membership model, you've got participation, where it's actually, no, we're embracing our entire sector. We want to get everyone involved. And then the natural byproduct of us engaging in really worthwhile, impactful ways with the sector is financial membership growth. Because as a member, you get more, but as a non-member, you still get enough stuff so that you understand and see the value. And look, there are big corporates like Facebook who've monetized that. LinkedIn has a lot of members, but there's a lot more non-members who sit there on LinkedIn, and those non-members actually create a lot of value for the members. We actually did a survey in New Zealand for a client, and there was 2 online communities in their sector. The free online community that wasn't the associations allowed anybody in the sector to be a member. The association community only allowed members to be a member. And I was calling their members as part of a consultation process to ask why they weren't engaging with the community. And one lady summed it up really well. She said, look, when I go to these, I don't want to be a member of a heap of communities because really it's a pain in the bum. But if I'm going to go to one, she said, I had to choose. And she said, I chose the other one because when I go into there, I can access the hive mind of our entire profession. But when I go to the association community, before I've even logged in, they've already shrunk it down to only a small percentage. And she said, that's why I go there. The non-members are part of the value proposition. So we need to start thinking differently about membership. But part of thinking differently about membership is understanding, what do we want to be? Like, what's the potential for what we could look like in 5 or 10 years? And look, here's a couple of archetypes here for you to have a think of. But, do we want to be a Netflix where people come to us and they get a really personalized recommendations and great content, and so our relationship is there? Or do we want to be a LinkedIn that's a platform that brings our whole sector together in really seamless ways so they can connect and collaborate? Or do we want to be a change.org? Do we want to be something where we can find out about issues and then we put it out to our members and our members can go forth and advance change on those issues? Or do we want to be like a Duolingo where we have really fun gamified learning pathways where members come to us to upskill, knowing that it's not just going to be useful, but they're actually going to make huge advances against on information knowledge? And Amazon, do we want to be a store where we sell a lot of different products, potentially not all of our own products, where people can see us as a one-stop shop for all of the products that a particular trade or industry might require? Or are we like an Amnesty where we amplify the voices of those that we serve and drive for legislative and policy change, raising community awareness of issues? Or do we want to be like a Tesla, where we're the innovators, the ones who are seen as the ones who are breaking new ground? I mean, using these archetypes is a really good way to start positioning and thinking about what could the future look like, because you can't be all of these. You really can't. To execute even one of these well is hard. Most associations will be a mix of two and a bit of another one of these. But what's your mix? Actually thinking about that, figure out what we want to be, and then coming up with the membership model that suits that. So you can, if you come up with that, you go, right, if everything was on the table, anything's fine, what would we look like? And this is where you go, right, well, we're aligning it. Let's look at our purpose. Let's look at our identity. Are we a professional body? Are we a cause body, an industry, trade association? Who do we serve? Do we serve our members? Do we serve the sector? Do we serve the public? And the people who join us are just enabling this cause. Now, what are the principles of our membership? Do we have like the Masons, where if you remember, you get stuff, and if you not get stuffed, which is, it's okay for them, that's a click? Or are we a community, more of the participation model? What are the functions that we serve? There's only 5 functions that any association can do. Representation of government of the public, mobilization, think get up, getting our members to do stuff. Service provision, where we provide them with products and services and publications and content. Skills pathways, so think, going to become a doctor or a radiologist or a plumber, so someone learns. Or community, think LinkedIn, where people connect. There's only 5 functions. You can't do all 5, 2.5. Thinking about making a decision so that you are competitively agile. You're not trying to be all things to all people. Because once you've got all that, you can start looking at things like, well, how do we, so, okay, if that's what we're doing, how do we need to engage with our members? Why do we have members? What do we want from them in terms of engagement? Do we need them to inform policy? Do we need them to buy stuff off us? And then components, what are the groups? Do we need branches, special interest groups, communities of practice, boards? What are the components and the volunteering pathways, and how do they all fit? And when you get to that, you can go, right, well, all right, on that basis, what are our categories going to look like? Who should, not everyone could be a member, but who should be a member? Who should get voting rights? And once you know those categories, you can say, right, well, for each of the categories, what's the value proposition to them? Understanding that that's only your primary top level, you would also need to use other data to more deeply personalize the membership experience. And of course, lastly, how do we do this sustainably? Now, I'm just going to go through here. One of the things, and I know I've flown through the membership model stuff, I will run a webinar just on that. But all of this is only possible with the last 2 things. 1, how can we better demonstrate visionary leadership and effective governance? It comes from the top. And I know for some board members, and they're like, oh, well, I only attend a meeting once a quarter or once every 2 months. It can't have that big of an impact. It's huge. The leadership required to navigate associations through what we're entering into now, which is going to be the single biggest period of change that associations have ever seen, requires boards to have a shared sense of purpose, a collaborative working relationship with the CEO and the staff team, a really clear understanding of what's strategic, what's operational, and how that all works together. Because a board that actually has this will help your association to fly. And so this is absolutely fundamental. And one of the things that drives this forward is actually this effective strategic planning. Being able to go out there and come up with not a 26-page document that could be used as a doorstop, but a strategy on the page that isn't this committee-derived thing with a vision statement that you need a cup of tea and a lie down halfway through because holy crap, it's dull. You need something that is a roadmap that makes people excited and passionate when they look about what's coming. You need to have a vision that sets the destination, a purpose that says what you're doing and why, and strategic priorities. Now, when you go through here, your strategic priorities are going to be big things. So when I'm looking at my strategic priorities for the next couple of years, it's what is the big, powerful impact I want to make against our cause or for our members or our sector in the next couple of years? 1, 2, and 3. If we could do nothing else, what are those impacts? And your strategic priorities need to be that. They're not about, we're going to be the biggest, bestest membership ever with the most number of members. No one gives a crap about that outside of the association. That's operational. Your strategic priorities about is how are you going to change people's worlds that you look after? And having those 3 strategic priorities and the strategies and projects underneath them that's saying how you're going to do that, that's a roadmap that's compelling, that will make people excited to be part of your journey. And the operational priorities, what are you going to do with communications, governance, marketing, financial sustainability, technology and digital transformation? Those are operational. Those things fall into the category of things no one gives a crap about unless they go horribly wrong. They're operational priorities about how do we position the organization to be able to deliver on the strategic priorities. And so those why we put them underneath. And yes, you do need to, when you figure out the impact you want to make on a strategic level, the difference you want to make, the next level down is say, well, okay, operationally, how do we need to reposition ourselves to deliver those things? We do need to do some digital transformation. Oh yeah, we might need to enhance our governance. We might need to look at our communications. Those are great. They're operational priorities though. They are not strategic. And the biggest mistake associations make when they go into strategic planning, and I see these plans all the time, they'll have a vision, a purpose, and a whole heap of operational stuff, and they miss the important bit in the middle, which is how are we going to make the world a better place against the cause that we serve? And this is something where if you can get this done in a consultative way, the idea, the old-fashioned idea that, you walked in with a blank sheet of paper and the board at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, you walked out with the world's best strategic plan. I don't even think that was ever a reality. Great strategic plans now are consultative. Talk to your members, talk to your non-members, talk to other stakeholders, talk to your staff, talk to your board, talk to all of your volunteers. Actually get input, do the survey, ask about the importance versus effectiveness, get the evidence together to develop a robust draft straw man that then is what you start your board strategic planning day with. Is you walk in with that straw man and that evidence to say, based on everything we've done, this is what it should look like. But here as a board now, let's work through and refine this. And this, a great roadmap to the future, is critical for all of these conversations that we've talked about today. If you want to move forward, there's so many moving parts in this. Having a great strategic plan and a great operational plan that actually maps the way forward in a way that your staff and your members, others in your sector and your board can embrace and feel that sense of shared purpose is really critical, because, as I say, we are about to enter a period of change for associations. It's unprecedented. The clever associations now are positioning themselves, getting ready, understanding that they need to evolve, and these 14 conversations are the ones that will start that process happening. So I hope this has helped. I'm going to send this as a PDF out to everyone who's attended, in addition to the recording of the seminar. And if you have any questions, you can let me know, but I'm also happy to sit around now. I'm aware I've gone a little over time, but if you have got any questions, please let me know. But thank you so much. It's been great to have you all here. And I'll hang around for a few moments. Just feel free to use the chat, or if you wanted to put anything into the Q&A. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Yes, Michael, I have some old favorite stories that I say. Thanks, everyone. It's very hard talking to a screen with no faces, so I appreciate the feedback. And I see, Andrew, you've popped up. Increasing response to advocacy-focused organisations. If we don't invest, you will continue to fight the good fight. Do you know, it's really interesting. There is a lot more interest in advocacy, but people are looking for really tangible outcomes and really tangible projects moving forward. And we're actually finding a lot of funding is coming in as well from people who aren't necessarily part of the core membership base, but will benefit if the advocacy is successful. So I don't fully understand the entire question you're getting, but one of the things that we do find with associations, it's if not us, then who syndrome, which is an important one. sometimes an association goes in knowing it's going to lose, and sometimes simply fighting the fight itself is actually just what needs to be done. And there's a few stories with that we can talk about with that, but it's a lot of it comes down to bringing people on board as well, the communication. But happy if you want to ask more questions in the chat about that to clarify, and happy to have a chat with you offline about that, because it is a big space at the moment. I still remember when I was with one association, it's called the strident voice of the retail minority, and we were the anti-Sunday trading. But we knew we were never going to get Sunday trading prevented. We knew it was going to come in, and we fought them on every beach. We fought the majors. We represent the small to medium-sized, mainly grocery stores and retailers who could open on a Sunday when the majors couldn't. And it was really interesting. We had people calling weekly in tears and so grateful that we were actually fighting to help their business just stay alive for that little bit longer, knowing we'd eventually lose. But this is definitely the case of, if not us, then who? If we hadn't raised the voice and fought that fight, no one would have done it. And that's when you look at advocacy, how do you translate the advocacy that you're doing to tangible outcomes that people are going to get that passionate about? Because when people can see the impact on themselves and feel that tangible nature, they're more likely to respond. Yeah, Andrew, absolutely. Drop me a line anytime. Very happy to chat about this. It's a bit of a favorite area. Any other questions? I know I've gone way over now, so but that is absolutely okay. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for coming. And if you do have any questions, Angela will send my contact details through, and I'm really happy to answer them, because I know I went through that so fast and there's so much involved, and I could have happily have spent a whole day going through each of those areas because there's so much going on. Have a great day, everybody.